Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Fountain Street Church. My name is Reverend Christopher Rowe, and for one more hour, I have the pleasure and the honor of serving as the senior minister here, a place where love and peace and hope are the shared works of our faith. It is good to be with each and every one of you as we gather on this big Sunday. It's a big Sunday because it's the final Sunday of our church program calendar year, so our education programs wind down, our choral music program winds down, our 2 services on Sunday winds down, but it's also a big Sunday because we are saying goodbye, letting go, and releasing of a few things today. And so it is good to be with each and every one of you as we honor and hold the heaviness that is in this room, the gratitude that is in this room, the joy and the grief that is in this room. It's wonderful to be with each and every one of you. As we move into this final church service together, I would like to call us into our community with one of our favorite and most beloved calls to community. You've heard it a time or two while I've been with you. A place of belonging. Hear these words as they call us into this hour with one another. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You've been looking for something larger than yourselves. Inside of you, there's a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and of caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common and yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share it amongst all of us. And so you began to seek a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds out its arms wide to the possibility of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. And so welcome to that place. Welcome to worship. Welcome to Fountain Street Church, beloved. As we call one another into this time, I invite you to take this moment and offer the love of peace and the peace of love to one another. You'll be called back with our first hymn. This morning's Ancient Witness comes to us as a remix of sorts from the book of Ecclesiastes, rewritten by Reverend M.J. Kaiser. Hear the spirit of the ancient world as it speaks truth into our time. For everything there is a season, or so they say. Very little is as simple as good or bad. It is often more of a question of who, and of when, a why, and a how. There are times for the birth of something new. There are times to welcome death. There are times to plant seed for those things yet to come, and times for harvesting the long labor of others. There are times when destruction is necessary, or at least unavoidable, and there are times when healing is in fact possible. There are times to create, and times to tear down what has been created. There are days where only weeping will do, and others where only laughing is available to us. Some days we can only mourn, and yet others we dance. And we ebb and we flow our way in and out of community. Sometimes we long to be in the arms of another, and other times we long for the intimacy of solitude. There are times for seeking a way through the impossible, and other times for accepting our losses. There's a time to hold on, but there's also a time to let go. There are times when some of us need to be silent, and a time when the rest of us must speak up. Love has its time, and hate has its place. Conflict must be accepted, and peace welcomed in its due time. May we listen our way into and out of each season with wisdom as our guide, forcing nothing outside of its time, receiving everything for exactly what it is, trusting in God of love's companionship. This morning's contemporary witness is also from another favorite around here, Jan Richardson's blessing. This day we say grateful. Hear the contemporary spirit as it calls us into love and peace with one another. It is a strange thing to be so bound and so released all in the same moment. To feel the heart open wide and wider still, even as it turns to take its leave. On this day, let us say that this is simply the way that love moves in its ceaseless spiraling, turning us toward one another, and then sending us out into whatever it is that waits for us with arms open wide in welcome and in hope. On this day, in this place and space where you have poured yourselves out and where you have been emptied and filled and emptied yet again, may you be aware more than ever of what your heart has opened to here, what it has tended to and welcomed here, where it has broken in love and in grief here, where it has given and received blessings in the unfathomable mystery that moves through us, undoes us, and remakes us finally for joy. This day, may you know this joy in its full measure. This day, may you know this blessing that gathers you in and sends you forth. But it will never forget you. Oh, hear us this day as we say grace, this day as we say grateful, this day as we say blessing, this day as we release one another into God's safekeeping and hold one another in love's gladness and God's love.
Out of the ruins and rubble out of the smoke, out of our night of struggle, can we see a ray of hope, one pale thin ray reaching for the day. We may not reach the ending, but we can start slowly but truly mending, brick by brick and heart by heart. Now, maybe now, we start learning how we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. When your trust is all but shattered, when your faith is all but killed, you can give up bitter and better, or you can slowly start to build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but finally a city of man. A city of
So I've heard it said, and most likely you have as well, that the only certainties in life are death and taxes. Death and taxes. And while many of us might agree with this old adage, I also believe to that list we would add change. We would add change. And that probably doesn't surprise a whole lot of you. The only certainties in life are death, taxes, and change. On more than one occasion over my 6 years with you, you've heard me use that paraphrased ancient fragment from Heraclitus, the only certainty is change. The only certainty is change. And more contemporarily, you've undoubtedly heard me lift up those immortal words of Octavia Butler as she reminds us that all you touch, you change. All you touch is change. The only certainty is change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. So for our purposes, at least for this morning, let's simply lift up that the only certainties in life are death, taxes, and change. Now, in my own theological framework and spiritual tradition, that of the Christian witness, change is quite literally the grounding force for the canon of stories and the library of wisdom that the Christian perspective offers. The very God of change that Octavia so beautifully evokes, and the Holy Spirit of transformation that can only be known in the liberation of transition, is the same cosmic force that threads the ancient stories together and reminds us that the only certainty in life is, in fact, change. We just heard Reverend M.J. Kaiser's remix of Ecclesiastes that quite literally sings this out, and that ancient truth that reminds us that for everything there's a season. Seasons that are endlessly and ceaselessly marked by the ebbs and flow of change. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what has been planted, a time for love and a time for hate, a time for war and a time for peace. The only certainty in life are death, taxes, and change. Dig a little deeper into the collection of ancient wisdom offered to us from the Christian spirit, and even if you wanted to, you couldn't ignore the witness of change, transition, transformation, and rebirth throughout these stories. And one of the more prolific and most profound ways in which we witness change and transition in these ancient stories actually comes from the leaders and figures of authority and power and honor and respect who embody change and transition within and among themselves. I think of those ancient stories of Moses, who tirelessly leads the people of Israel through immense cultural transition and generational transformation, only to then turn over such a great ministry and leadership to Joshua. And I think of the stories of Orpah, who, though reluctant, departs her beloved company with Ruth and Naomi so that she can pursue her own life and her own living. And then, of course, there's Paul, who continued to minister to the New Testament churches through words of encouragement and inspiration, even as he recognized that the season of his own leadership was deeply, deeply nuanced, if not altogether nebulous. And who among us could dismiss the ministry of Jesus, who quite literally turned his world upside down in pursuit of the revolution that was grounded in God's love and justice, only to then leave that very world behind, ultimately leaving the real work of resurrection, regeneration, and restoration in the hands of his disciples and in the hands of all who had so daringly chosen to be part of love's revolution. There is no Christian witness without the bold witness to the spiritual surrender to change and transition among and within communities of hope and faith. And this morning, as we gather in reverence of the reality that the only certainties in life might be death, taxes, and change, we are reminded that within the certainties of change and transition is also the certainty of goodbye. And today, we have gathered for mine and ours. We are gathered here in part to say goodbye. You know, it's funny because the word goodbye feels like such a heavy word in our contemporary English language. As I've prepared myself for this day over the past 6 months, I felt this day accompanied with a sense of dread and loss, attaching it to the more common feelings of sadness and sorrow that keep company with goodbyes. It's just such a loaded experience to say goodbye. And it's funny because in many languages around our global community, the same word can actually be used for multiple purposes, including the very word goodbye. If you were in Italy, you would simply say ciao to mean both hello and goodbye. In Hawaiian, there's the familiar aloha to signify both greetings and departures. And in the Czech Republic, ahoy is used as both a means of welcoming and sending off. It's called polysemy, a word containing within itself more than one meaning, even if they are at times paradoxical or seemingly contradictory. It kind of reminds me of another adage you've heard me use around here for the past 6 years. Multiple truths can and do exist. Multiple truths can and do exist. Multiple truths can and do exist. And hello and goodbye might actually just coexist similarly, even when a goodbye feels so blisteringly sad. And therein lies the good news for us this morning. In the heart of a pithy little linguistic lesson and grounded in the idea that multiple truths can and do exist. Because the good news, beloved, for us this morning is that this pithy little word game for hello and goodbye in our language reveals something far more profound than a simple mechanic of our language. It reveals that when we can acknowledge and affirm both meanings that are held within the same word, there can also be an acknowledgement and an affirmation of the fluidity and the liminality of time and of space and of our place within them. When our hello and our goodbye are about the same, then every coming together already acknowledges and affirms an inevitable parting of ways. And yet every parting of ways holds within it the acknowledgement and the affirmation of an inevitable greeting or welcoming to something entirely new. And beloved, that is some damn good news for us this morning because it reminds us throughout time and across generations and within every coming and going of the human experience, whether we are moving towards one another or away from one another, we are still inextricably connected. We are still inextricably connected. And by the very paradoxes we are playing with this morning, and by the very paradoxes that live within, among, and around us all, at all times, in all places, and in all spaces. And if we are inextricably and infinitely connected, which I believe we are, and if our hellos and our goodbyes are about the same, which I believe that they are, and if multiple truths can and do exist in a human experience and a cosmic condition in which the grounding life force is the God of change, which I believe they do, then I stand before you this morning with a broken heart that is also hopeful, a wounded spirit that is also whole, and a sorrowful presence swelling with sadness that is also filled with great gratitude and overflowing with joy. Because I believe that even in this goodbye, as difficult as it is a simultaneous hello for all of us, which helps making this otherwise dreadful goodbye a pretty damn good one. And here's the thing about this good news. It's universal, it's ubiquitous, it's an awareness and a reality and a condition of the human experience that we all know intimately. We all know this intimately. Maybe you've lost a loved one, and in that goodbye, you sensed a hello to something new in your life. Maybe you've experienced the dissolution of a marriage or a partnership or a relationship, and in that ending also found a new beginning. Maybe at one time you walked away from a community or a circle of connection or even a congregation or church you loved, and in that movement away, discovered a simultaneous movement towards. Or maybe you have come to the end of a job or a role or a responsibility or even a ministry that is shared only to recognize that all along one closing was simultaneously the threshold of an opening. I am certain that every person in this gathered beloved community sits here this morning fully conscious of the multiple truths and the paradoxes of living that have been imprinted upon their lives. And so I encourage us this morning to see the ways in which this good news for us today exists beyond this moment in time we're sharing, so that we can honor the enormity of the comings and the goings and the openings and the closings and the hellos and the goodbyes that live within, around, and among us all. For Moses, Orpah, Paul, and certainly Jesus, their goodbyes gave way, made space, and provided grace for a new hello into something that they could have never offered their beloved community if they were not brave enough to say goodbye to them. And if their beloved communities in kind were not courageous enough to say goodbye to. And that is where I believe we are this morning. Dreading this goodbye, but also knowing it is time. Dreading this sense of loss and change, but also aware it is best. Dreading this thrust even deeper into an unknown wilderness, but also aware that our next season of resurrection, restoration, change, and transformation is undeniably hinged upon it. So, beloved, let this goodbye be a good one. Let this goodbye be a good one. Let this ruefully sad departure be a rightfully courageous arrival. Let this timeless and ceaseless and unending cycle of seasons carry us into our next chapters that will undoubtedly still be intertwined. And let us say goodbye in ways that honor the multiple truths that can and do exist within us. It honors the internal paradoxes that at times enrage us in equal steps with encouraging us to work together to create the more loving world we know is possible. Just like those in this church have done before us, and just like those within and beyond this church will certainly do after us. Today we say goodbye, and we also say hello. And as I look on these past 6 years of shared ministry with you, I would be remiss not to use this opportunity to take these final moments and hold the paradoxes, the dichotomies, and the incongruent realities, and the multiple truths that did exist for us all. Because these last 6 years were horrible, and they were wonderful. These last 6 years took me to some of the darkest nights of my soul, and some of the brightest mornings of my becoming. These past 6 years were at times ugly and often beautiful. And they were terrifying, and they were grounding. These past years were constricting, and they were freeing. And sometimes they were equal parts oppressive as they were liberating, equal parts painful as they were healing, and equal parts hate-filled as they were filled with love's grace. At times, and some of you know, I behaved in ways over these 6 years I wasn't always proud of. And I behaved in ways that I never imagined I would have without the support and the courage from all of you in this community. I made great enemies, and I made greater friendships. And I learned so much about the kind of leader and human I wanted to be from our dedicated staff, our steadfast volunteers, and many of you. And sometimes I learned a lot about the kind of human and leader I didn't want to be in kind. I spent as much time fantasizing about leaving this church as I did fantasizing about the shared future we could have together. And I lost as many tears in sorrow for resigning from this position as I have recently shed in humble appreciation and in affirmation that this is the right decision for all of us and at the right time for all of us. Because I've known for some time that my goodbye was needed to serve as a new hello to our collective work together, even if in fact we are not always together. Beloved, multiple truths can and do exist, and our goodbyes and our hellos remind us that we can and do simultaneously move towards and away from one another at all times. We can and do offer hellos in our goodbyes. And we can and do extend a sorrowful goodbye as a joyous hello into something new. And so that is where we are on this devastatingly joyous morning as we say goodbye and hello to one another, to our shared past, to our shared future, to our shared becoming, wherever and whatever that becoming may be in the life of this church that we share. And so I leave you with thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for this. Goodbye and hello. Ciao. Aloha. Ahoy. Goodbye. right, at this time, we're going to invite the choir forward. And as they do so, I will do this spiel one last time for you all. We have this rich tradition here where the offering is a symbol of our connection beyond these walls. Of course, 50% does stay here in this ministry with one another so that we can continue this shared work even through the hellos and the goodbyes that we offer throughout the seasons. But 50% goes to other organizations who are doing transformative work, collective work, organizing work, activism work. And so in the spirit of hellos and goodbyes and the seasons that change, but the love that is eternal, the offering will now most graciously be received.
There is hurting in my family. There is sorrow in my town. There is panic all across the nation. There is wailing the whole world around. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. And I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty arm to hold my confusion. Give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tears. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of
Another tradition we've had around here over the years is on this final programmatic Sunday, just to lift up and celebrate and honor everyone who makes this place what it is, who makes this a church, who makes this a beloved community. It's easy to just get up here in the pulpit and hope the mic's on. It's a whole other thing to have an entire ministry that is supported by lay folks and Friends of Fountain Street Church, or a dedicated staff, or a corps of regular committed volunteers. And so on this final Sunday, as we lift up with gratitude everything that is this community, we also want to make sure that we honor all of the people who make it so. Particularly, we have a staff of dedicated folks that I always want to draw attention to year over year. Often they are everywhere but up front, and usually you see most of Austin's back when he's up here. And so let's take a moment just to honor our staff, from Cale Clements to Lori Rickers to Jamie McDaniels to Margie Peterson to Joe Puskas. To everybody who makes this possible, to Darius, to Jamie, to Cliff, to our sound crew, to every person upstairs on the second floor most of you will never meet, to everyone who makes this so, week in, week out. Will you join me in thanking them for their dedicated service to our community? In a little bit, we will move over to the social hall, where we are going to have a more dedicated space to honor the departure aspect of today. But I do want to lift up that it is our Director of Education, Joe Puskas' last day, and he is somewhere. Oh, I see a bunch of people pointing at him. Thank you, Joe, for your service to our church. We'll talk about that later. Another goodbye that we bid today, and again, we will honor in just a little bit in the social hall, is to Austin McWilliams. Austin and I kind of came on the scene together at the same time alongside Reverend Greta Joe, who's also with us today. And I'll never forget this Sunday where we just threw the doors open after, well, it wasn't after COVID, it was just when COVID was a little safer. And we all just kind of thought, okay, are we gonna do this? I'll never forget Carol Quaster, who couldn't be here today, saying, are the kids in charge today or what? So it has been a joyous season to work alongside this kid who I admire and respect, and I'm so grateful for the colleagueship we've shared. Thank you, Austin McWilliams. We've been told by the staff that when Austin and I are meeting in my office, they can actually hear us through the floor. We're so loud. We'll have more time in the social hall after this time together. I hope you'll go over there and join us. We'll have some remarks on these departures and these goodbyes. And in this moment, we're going to take a moment to formally do a liturgy of release. We have a tradition here at Fountain Street Church where your senior minister is called by you, the congregation. You call me. You could theoretically fire me. But together, we are in covenant with one another. And so the liturgy of release is a symbolic way of honoring not only my time as the senior minister amongst you, but also, the acting senior minister, the executive minister, the acting minister, and the minister of spiritual life and learning that we shared together. It's been a joyous 6 years. And so I invite you to read along with me. We're just going to ritualize this with one another. For 6 years, you've offered me your free pulpit and the freedom of creativity and worship, gifts for which I am so grateful. I hereby return the ministry of worship to your able hands. Use it to speak the truth in love to one another, to continue to find reverence and meaning together. We thank you. For 6 years, you have welcomed me into the transitional moments of your lives, times of sorrow and of crisis, and also of great joy. It has been my privilege to care for you in your times of need. And so I now return the ministry of pastoral care back into your hands. Use it to comfort and celebrate the milestones of your lives with compassion, beloved. From my first days with you, you've asked me to lead you in works of justice and compassion, inspiring us to build a better world. I return the prophetic ministry into your hands. Use it to take the teachings of Fountain Street Church beyond these walls and into the human family. Since my arrival, you've asked me to serve as an administrator and professional leader in this congregation. Today, I return the ministry of this congregation to you. May you guide yourselves with courage and wisdom into a strong and sure future. The light of our shared ministry will be extinguished today, but our respective ministries will continue separately. Our separate fires will bring light to the world with new and unique ways. And so I will light 2 candles, one to symbolize your ministry as a congregation, and the other to represent the ministry that I now take with me. With love and gratitude, I release you from our covenant with one another and our shared ministry with one another. Beloved, go your way in peace, truth, and love, ever knowing that God is with you, and so am I. The choir will be leading us in our sung blessing, and so we invite them forward. And as they do, I will remind you, you are invited warmly to join us in the social hall for another way of ritualizing this transition for all of us and celebrating the ministry we've shared, and of course, celebrating a beloved year with one another. I also want to lift up in gratitude the appreciation for the beautiful and vibrant flowers that were given today from the Women's Association in honor of the past and the present staff members and those who are departing today. Our hearts overflow for the Women's Association for honoring all of the wonderful folks who have made this community what it is. You can put the eagle back if you want, or you can do something else. It really doesn't matter anymore to me. But if you were asking me, I'd put up a mirror. If you're looking for a symbol of power, I'd put up a mirror. If you are looking for a symbol of truth, I'd put up a mirror. If you're looking for a symbol of transformation and courage and hope and love, I'd put up a mirror. You're going to be okay, and so am I, because everything you need is within you, among you, and around you. So go in peace, enough as you are. I love you, thank you, and goodbye.